Unreal Engine 5 is well regarded as being amongst the most advanced state-of-the-art programs in all 3D media. So naturally, we're going to ignore all that and make a simple 2D game inside of Unreal Engine instead. We all know that Godot is obviously going to be the better choice for low-end 2D games, but today we're just trying to decide whether or not Unreal is reasonably usable for 2D projects. If you'd like a comparison for 3D games, be sure to say so in the comments. Now, let's get started. First of all, setting up. Setting up the project to be 2D ready in Unreal wasn't really that hard, but it definitely was annoying, because I had to do almost everything by hand. Meanwhile, in Godot, setup is very simple. Now, I'm sure that if I made a lot of 2D games in Unreal, I'd be able to set up way faster, but still, that's a lot more clicks than I'd like to do. And while it's much easier and faster to set up in Godot, that's really only because the character controller comes as prefab and that the tile map is easier to use. So obviously, I much prefer Godot's tile map, but the character controller I made in Unreal actually felt better to play than the one in Godot. I feel like this is mostly because the camera following was a bit better. For example, it had momentum after you'd stop moving, and the jumping was a bit snappier. In Unreal, to animate the running, I make some blueprints to change which flipbook, or what's basically a traditional frame-by-frame sprite animation, is being used at a given time. In this case, we want the idle animation when the character isn't moving, and the running animation when the character is moving. Godot works by the same principle, but the code I have to write is a lot simpler, and also setting up animation requires a few less clicks. It's the same story with flipping the character. Unreal has some code that's not very complex, but feels a bit much for something as simple as flipping the character, and in Godot, it's just a single line pre-written command that you can just put in some if statements to trigger. Now, let's look at our finished prototypes. You'll notice that here in Unreal, there's some odd behavior with the tile map collisions, and I'm not sure how to fix it. I'm sure that you can, I just couldn't figure it out. Secondly, without changing any lighting settings except for disabling Lumen, Unreal's game looks brighter and more washed out than it does in Godot. Most things specific to 2D are going to be much better in Godot than Unreal, so I'm not going to waste your time by going through all of them. But that raises the question, what is Unreal actually better for? While nothing specific to 2D makes Unreal really a competitive choice to other game engines, the benefits of Unreal mostly come in the form of 3D tools that can be used in a 2D project. This is especially useful in games with a hybrid style like Octopath Traveler or a 3D side-scrolling game like Ori. Mainly, Unreal has really good lighting, and its particle system can do some pretty cool stuff as well. Also, some people might prefer blueprints over writing code. Personally, I find it hard to keep blueprints from getting messy, but otherwise, I don't really have a preference one way or another. So, Unreal is a bit rough around the edges for this, but you can make 2D games work, especially if you use a couple of useful plugins like PaperZT. Personally, I'll probably only use Unreal for my 3D projects and stick to Godot for 2D stuff, but it's honestly not as bad as I thought it would be. It takes a bit of work, but you can get some really good stuff out of Unreal, especially if you want to use it for its more advanced features.